Hi everyone, and welcome to our cooking lesson for today. Today I'm going to be teaching you how to make a dish called a lemongrass chicken. It's kind of a recipe I kind of made up on my own because I didn't like kind of combine different recipes because a lot of the recipes, it's Vietnamese, have curry powder and I don't like that. So I know this isn't Japanese, we usually do Japanese dishes, but I don't want to teach you how to make teriyaki chicken, right? I mean, that's just so boring. So this is actually the dish that I usually recommend at a catering job if people want to do chicken, because it is different and it's very tasty. Starting with the marinade, this is our secret ingredient. This is called, can you see this, Kitchen Garden? Or there you go. It's the brand that I've used for years. They always sell this at Safeway, so you're pretty much guaranteed. These are about $5 a tube, which is a lot, but when they go on sale, I'll buy a bunch. I always have these in the freezer. They also have, this is another one I always keep in the freezer, basil and cilantro, because you don't want to buy that fresh, a whole bunch of it, and then you only use a little bit. So it's nice to have that in the freezer as a backup. So I just do this, cut off the in here. Oh, by the way, we're going to do this just to explain what we're going to do today. Show you how to make the marinade, and then after that I'm going to go over some basic cutting skills and basic information about knives, because we all need to know. It all helps us all know about our tools, especially how to cut safely. That's the key. So this is wonderful because this is minced. If you get fresh lemongrass, you have to chop the heck out of it, and it always ends up with being fibrous. And at the Vietnamese stores, they sell frozen, minced lemongrass, but it's still very fibrous. This is really nice because it's finely minced. It's a miracle for me, and it's a godsend, or Buddhist send, I guess. So we have our 2 tubes of the paste. Now we're going to go 2 teaspoons shoyu. I'm using tamari these days because there always seems to be someone that's gluten intolerant. It's just easier. So 2 teaspoons. Two teaspoons of oyster sauce. I was going to mention too, by the way, you can also do chicken skewers with this. You would just chop up the chicken into chunks and then marinate it. And I don't know if you know this too, but before you do skewers, you soak the skewers in water for a while, or an hour or 2, or overnight, whatever, so that they get really soak in the water, and so they don't burn when you cook them. Okay, so shallots. You could use onions in a pinch if you don't have shallots, but shallots are a beautiful thing. They have a really good flavor. It's kind of like a cross between garlic and onions. Before I went to culinary school, I had never even used or heard of shallots really, or I'd heard of them but never used them, but they're very tasty. Another thing I have here that's nice is called a microplane. It's a brand, I think, but it's a type of grater that's very fine. You can see that, but it's really nice because you'll see, like with the shallots, I could mince these finely, and actually I did that yesterday for the other one, the marinade there. But you end up with chunks that can be, you know, make make you have little pieces, which is fine. But with something like this, it's really nice to have it grated like this because it just goes into the marinade and the flavor comes out more. Going for 2 tablespoons of this. Using agave, I love to use agave because it's in liquid form, which the beauty in that, it's about 1 to 1 with sugar. Maybe it's a little bit sweeter than sugar, but it's better glycemic index, which is better for you, and also it's liquid. Whenever I use, you can use regular sugar, that's fine, but whenever I use regular sugar, well, with this application it's not a big deal, but what I like about the agave is that it doesn't, you know, you don't end up, if it's something that's not heated, you can end up getting crunchy little crystals of sugar. And so with the agave, you're avoiding that possibility. Fish sauce. Fish sauce has wonderful umami. I love this stuff. It really smells bad, but when you cook it, it mellows that out, and the flavor is amazing. If you don't have fish sauce, you could use, just throw in a little more soy sauce, 1 tablespoon of oil, and then 1 teaspoon sesame oil. We have 4 or 5 cloves of garlic. Oh, another thing I was going to mention is don't waste your time buying regular, this is my 2 cents, but don't buy regular aluminum foil. Always, it's so bad. If you ever use it, it just tears and you end up with a leak. Heavy duty is so much better. I have to throw that in because it's my pet peeve. I hate working with regular foil. Once again, a trusty microplane. I'm going to throw a little extra garlic in there. There's our timer. I'm going to throw a little extra. I have my backup minced because I like a lot of garlic. Okay, so all we have left is sriracha. So everyone loves sriracha, right? Just a little bit in here for kick and a little extra flavor. So this is our marinade, it's all ready to go. Oh, forgot. I didn't put this on the recipe, but just a little bit, like about a teaspoon of this basil gives a nice undertone. You can, not too much, because it's pretty potent. But it gives a nice little basil undertone. Or of course you could use chopped fresh basil. Or Thai basil would be even better. That's ready to go. So here's our chicken. Chicken thighs, which are much juicier. I got boneless, skinless. And what do you call it? I prefer those to the breast. I have one of those meat tenderizers where it has all these little needles that poke into the meat to make it absorb the marinade, but a lot of people don't have that, so tines of the fork work very well. This is 2 pounds, which is like what I put in the oven, enough for probably 4 or 5 people. You can also make up a batch and you can freeze this marinade. It's nice to have it on hand. One thing it reminds me, it's always a good idea to check the temperature of your oven. My oven at home, I was wondering why everything was taking so long, and it's like 30 degrees off. So you can't trust that it's calibrated, especially if you have an old oven. Yeah, 2 pounds is about 8 boneless, skinless thighs. So the way I recommend doing marinades, I hate using plastic, but this is the one time I bring it out because it's the best way to marinate. You'll see why in a minute. On the bottom here. And of course, whenever you're working with chicken, just remember, I always try to keep it in the back of my mind, salmonella, food safety. Anything you touch, you can cross-contaminate with salmonella. So you just always have to be aware. To wash anything in between. I have a bottle of water with bleach that I always use or some disinfecting solution, just because you don't want to cross-contaminate. So squeeze the air out. And then the beauty of the Ziploc is that you can massage the meat to get the marinade really well in there. And you really got to work to get it distributed, and then later on, turn it. Do this again, because you'd be surprised at how much. Like you think you have the marinade all in there, and then you find later there's little pockets where the chicken is not getting the marinade. You can do it in a bowl. That's fine. But you definitely want to mix it, like I said, and then also get some plastic wrap and put it on top, touching, and press it down so that it's touching. That helps it, like the marinade on the top. Sometimes you'll have spots that are dry, so that keeps it all marinated. There we go. So like I said, just make sure you check this, because you'll still get some dry spots. So you're going to marinate that overnight. Definitely, halfway or later on today, just a couple times, just massage it around like that, because you'll get moisture coming out, it'll be more liquid, and then you'll see those dry spots. So, and of course, always when you do this, leave it in a container. If you leave it in your fridge, inevitably it'll leak. You don't want to even have that possibility. Okay, I'm all sanitized. So now we have our chicken cooking. And I just want to talk about some basic knife skills because I think it's important for us all to learn, and basic skills are very important. So first of all, by the way, cutting board, I put like a moist paper towel underneath, or at home I have, like the drawer liner. It's that stuff with the little grippy stuff, it's a little spongy. I just have pieces of that cut like this, and you put your cutting board right on top. I like a board that's a little bit bigger. Some people, they have these little, playing card size ones. Just, you need, the more space you have, the better. I know I'm a professional chef, but trust me, if you have more room to work with, you have more board to move around. In terms of what material, bamboo I love because it's pretty cheap and it's environmentally good, and it's the right texture. I hate this type of cutting board. They're sanitary, whatever. This is what you get in kitchens, but these are very hard and they dull your knife. I'm not saying you can't use them, but I recommend wood or rubber because it has more bite. Like, let's say you're chopping green onions. With those boards, you always end up with ones that are stuck together. So you get a little more bite with the bamboo or rubber. In terms of knives, I'll just go over the basics. There are two basic types of knives out there. One is Japanese, which is what I have. I don't have a German one with me. I only own one. That'd be like your Henkel or Wusthof. So the difference is, the Japanese knife is a fine edge. So it's thin, very thin blade, and at the end it has a gradual angle of about 15 to 17 degrees. A German knife, on the other hand, so that would be my terrible rendition. This would be like this. So it's thinner, and then it comes to a gradual angle. A German knife is at least twice as thick as a Japanese knife, and it's almost like a chisel point. It comes down like this, and that's 18 to 20 degrees. So you have to know what you have in order to be able to sharpen it. I'm not going to cover sharpening, that'd be a whole new subject, another subject, but just about steels, I only have a ceramic steel. This is more of a very fine, because it's basically like polishing the blade. In terms of this is called honing. So you have this, you have your regular steel, which I'm sure you guys have seen. It's the same thing, but it's metal and it has these little striations, little ridges. And the third one is a diamond steel. The diamond steel, you can feel it has little diamonds embedded. Those are actually really nice because they actually sharpen the blade some. So for people like me, if you're kind of lazy or don't want to sharpen as often, you just, oh shoot, I just remembered. You just can use that, and it actually gives more of an edge, whereas honing just realigns the molecules on the edge, so that if there's a little bit of a burr, it takes it off. In terms of how to use the steel, basically this is what I'm doing, 15 degrees because it's a Japanese knife. So, and if you want, you can try a protractor so you can see what 15 to 17 degrees looks like. I kind of got it memorized. All you do is this. But the reason why I'm bringing this up is that a lot of people never bring these out of their drawer. I use it when I'm cutting a lot, every 5 minutes. It makes a big difference. So, okay, that's how you do that. Or if you're, some people do it this, they teach doing this way, if you can see the angle better. Okay, the other thing is how to hold the knife. I'm gonna say, contrary to Japanese, all sushi chefs that I've worked with from Japan do this. Well, we were taught in culinary school, and from my personal experience, this is not the way to go. I always tell people, grab it like this. So you have your middle finger pushing up against the bolster of the knife, and then you pinch right here like this. And the reason why this is better is you get much more control. So if you're like this, you're not getting much, you're only grabbing down here. Whereas this, you're gaining complete control of the knife. So you see how the finger's touching here, this gives you the best control. The other thing I wanted to mention is the rocking motion. Oh, first of all, too, sorry, I had a fight with a Japanese peeler yesterday and it took chunks out of my finger. So the rocking motion is doing this. See that? So over something like this, tip is touching down. The other thing is the hand. We call this the claw. Your fingers should never get like this where you could be at risk of cutting your fingers. You always do it like I said, the claw, like this. So that it touches your knuckles. So that's how you guide it. It should never be free flowing, because that's when you risk the knife bouncing or jumping and hitting you. So it's always touching your finger, something like this. It's just lightly touching my knuckle, and then you see this motion. You know, a lot of people will just do this. And you can do that for certain stuff, but other times you need, well, the moving forward motion is what gives you a lot of your cutting ability. If you go down, you don't have as much, you end up not being as efficient in cutting. See that? Okay. So I just want to show a couple other things. So here's a cucumber. Let's say I'm cutting this. Once again, up to the knuckles, against the knuckles. You don't even have to look really. You can feel, or you're just pushing against that finger, that knuckle. And just moving your left hand little by little. Okay. So now I'm going to show how to cut an onion, which is so simple but so basic but important. A lot of people don't know how to do this. So your onion, when I'm talking about it, this is the top side, this is the root side. So I talk about it like planet Earth. This is the North Pole, this is the South Pole, this is the equator. So you're gonna always chop off the very top of the North Pole, and then turn it over and cut it south to north, like this, okay? Now you want to take off the peel. And sometimes you'll peel off one layer and then the next layer is partly good, but then part of it's papery. Just take it off because you don't want that papery part for people to eat. Okay. So I'm going to show you a couple of basic cuts that are important, very common. First one is how to do dicing, right? So the technique here is to cut this direction, like 2 or 3 times, maybe 3 or 4, whatever, and then we turn it and then cut this way, and then finally chop like this. So then you have all your finely diced final product. So I'll show you here. So you start here. And for this, you want a sharp knife. If you have a dull knife, not a happy experience. I mean, it's scary. You can be cut yourself. Okay, not all the way through though. See that? So then I'm turning it. You see what I did there? I made cuts that direction. Now I'm cutting this direction. not all the way to the edge. And then finally, so you have this way and this way. So when I cut it like this, you end up with beautiful little pieces all the same size. I usually cut this too. More tai nai if you throw away the onion, right? So you use all a little bit. Okay, so that's your diced onion, and you can do a little bit there on these little pieces. Okay. The other cut I'm going to teach you or show you is this cut is what I use a lot for stir fries, that kind of thing. So all you do is cut off that root end and just chop like this. Careful, you'll get down here where it starts getting a little weird to hold. Just flip it like that and finish off your cuts. This is nice because you end up with little kind of julienne-ish size pieces, which I like for stir fries. Okay, one other thing I wanted to mention about knives, just like with the cutting boards, is bigger is better. I used to use santoku for all the time, and that's all I used for a long time. But when you are cutting a lot, especially vegetables, the more knife you have, the better. Just trust me on this. I understand people have smaller hands and everything, but if you go a little bigger, it's less work for you. A small knife, you have to do a lot more work on with your hands, whereas a big knife, the heft of the knife, it does the work for you. So it might take you getting some used to, but I would recommend, it doesn't have to be a 10-inch, but 8 or 9 at least. Little itty bitty knives, it's too much work. Well, let's check on the chicken. Okay, so here I'm, this is optional, but I've started doing it recently where I just put some coconut milk on top. Gives a little creaminess and richness and moisture. And just as a safety practice, don't do this from the can. Well, if you're going to use this, once again, it's chicken, so just keep it separate here so that you're not getting cross-contamination. Just try to always be safe. I'm actually going to put these on broil to give them some nice color at the end. Well, let's check on the chicken. The one last thing is when I take these out of the oven, I would like to use fresh, but this is all I have. It's just a little drizzle of lime juice, and that'll give you a little brightness. You hear that with cooking a lot, that using acidity brightens things up, and it really does make a difference, especially with things that are very savory. Just a little bit of vinegar, a little bit of lemon juice or lime juice just gives a little brightness that can make a big difference. So that's just at the end, and you always want to do it at the end, not in the beginning, because the acidity you'll lose it, or you'll lose the flavor. Okay. Okay, so here's our finished product. This is enough chicken for 4 to 6 people, I'd say. So nice and steamy hot.